Hello, everyone, and welcome to Really Old Movies. I'm your host, Harrison Scullin, and today I'll be discussing Woman in Hiding from 1950, starring Ida Lupino and directed by Michael Gordon. This film was one of the three movies that I screened at the Arthur Lyons Film Noir Festival earlier this May. All right, some behind the scenes details about Woman in Hiding from 1950. This is from the film's IMDb page. Ida Lupino did not want to make this movie, let alone with Howard Duff, who she considered arrogant and obnoxious. Lupino and Duff would marry the year after the release of this film, on the day after her divorce from her second husband and filmmaking business partner, Collier Young. So I think that's kind of interesting because when you watch this movie, you kind of see that these two characters have a lot of chemistry together. So I think that's kind of funny how they ended up being married at one point. So I thought that was a pretty interesting point about this movie. But let's get into my thoughts in the film overall. So the plot, I gave it a 5 out of 5. I thought it was a great plot. I love the twist with the husband played by Stephen McNally. I loved how he's kind of a psychopath, kind of a crazy husband, only in it for the money sort of thing and for the mill. I love that. It felt very Hitchcockian. You're going to be hearing me say that throughout this. This feels like an Alfred Hitchcock film. I also love the great characters in this film, and I'll talk more about that in acting, but I really loved Ida Lupino's character, especially with Howard Duff. I thought they were great on screen together, and their relationship kind of blossomed and really grew. I felt pretty naturally for the storyline. And then lastly, I thought the chases that were throughout the film, the story felt very much like The Fugitive or other films like that. Other on the run films, North by Northwest comes to mind too. This is a great film to have in that category as well. But it's also a film noir because of the dark tone of the story, the narration, and kind of the stuff like that. I really liked it. I think it was a great film, or I thought it was a great plot overall. So that's why I gave it a 5 out of 5. All right, so talking about the acting, I gave the acting a 5 out of 5 as well. I thought Stephen McNally as the crazy husband was great. I thought Ida Lupino was great. But I think my favorite overall actor was Howard Duff. I loved his sarcasm. I loved his wit and his humor. But he was also kind of a tough guy. He was kind of a softie. He's looking out for Ida Lupino's character a lot. I love that. He reminded me a lot of like a Han Solo, no nonsense type guy. I really, really liked his character. I thought he was great and my favorite one overall, and I think the best actor overall. And then there's other actors, a lot of like character actors and whatnot. They're great too. Just overall, I thought the casting was perfect and the acting was really, really good in this movie for the characters and for the situations that they were in. All right, so now talking about the directing, I gave that a 5 out of 5 as well. So the director of this movie, his name is Michael Gordon. He's not a really well-known movie director. The only other film worth noting that I've heard of but never seen is Pillow Talk from 1959. This has Doris Day and Rock Hudson. Other than that, though, his films I've never really heard of, but I thought he did great here. Now, I'm comparing him a lot to Hitchcock. I think I wouldn't say stole, but a lot of his style kind of feels inspired by that. I think this movie would definitely be up there with like a Vertigo, North by Northwest, Rear Window, those movies. I thought he did really great here, especially with the scenes, the way they were set up, the camera angles. I'll get into that a little bit later, but I thought it was a really well-crafted film, and I think he did a great job. There's one scene in particular I'm thinking of that was really well-crafted was, at the very, very beginning, we see Ida Lupino drive a car off a cliff into the water, right? Or at least that's what we think, right? But the narration lets us believe that she's dead and whatnot. And just kind of the twists and the turns that the film has throughout. I really like that. The movie makes you think one thing, but then the other thing's actually true. I really like that. I thought it was really, really excellent. All right, so now talking about cinematography and special effects, I gave that a 5 out of 5 as well. It was really, really good. I mean, one of my favorite scenes in the movie, so Ida Lupino's character is being chased by Stephen McNally in a staircase, and We see the look of dread on her face when she sees her husband, her crazy husband, walk in. She's had her hair dyed and whatnot, trying to hide, but he's found her. So she looks down the stairwell, and it just looks like a forever maze. And I love that scene, just that shot in general. It kind of reminds me of one used later in Vertigo. It's a very, very similar scene. So I really like that. There's a couple other ones, like I mentioned earlier, the car crash, that was really cool, and how they kind of tricked us without showing us what really happened there. I really liked that. Just overall, the cinematography was really, really good for this movie. All right, so talking about the music, I give that a 4 out of 5. I thought it was good, but I think it could have used some more. What really makes a film noir for me is the kind of jazzy, kind of sad or somber sounding music. This movie didn't have a whole lot. I kind of wish I had more. Think of a movie like Vertigo, or I would consider Casablanca a film noir. Those movies have music that kind of sets the tone. This movie is kind of lacking that, but it's not terrible what is there. That's why I give it a 4, because it is good, but I wish there was more of it to kind of set the tone, especially when she's in the stairwell. But there's like background noise, going on. There's big party and whatnot. So I get it, but I wish there was like intense music. It could have used a lot more, especially in a thriller like this. You need music, a lot more of it. So that's why I gave it a 4. All right, so tallying that all up, that brings my Letterboxd score to a 4.8 out of 5, which I'm rounding to a 5 out of 5. So would I recommend this movie? Absolutely. I'll be giving this a 96% on Criticlist. I think it's a great film. The only flaws really are with the music, but other than that, I love the acting. I love the dialogue. I love the chase sequences. I just love everything about this movie. And I love the romance between Ida Lupino and Howard Duff. I thought they were great characters, and they did a great job overall. And I just love the fact that they actually ended up getting married after this movie. That's really cool to me. And supposedly Ronald Reagan, when he was an actor, was actually supposed to star in this movie, but he was unavailable. I think he broke his leg or something. But it's kind of interesting thinking what could have been had Ronald Reagan starred instead of Howard Duff, right? How different their lives would have turned out. But anyway, I just thought that was really interesting. So I'm definitely picking this up on Blu-ray from Kino Lorber. They just released it, I think maybe a year or two ago. But yeah, I definitely want to check that out. But yeah, those are my thoughts overall on Women in Hiding from 1950. Thank you all so much for watching and listening to today's episode. Make sure to follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Really Old Movies, where I discuss details about the week's particular film. New podcast episodes are released Saturdays at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music, and video versions on YouTube and Rumble Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. All right, thank you so much. This has been Really Old Movies. I'm your host, Harrison Scullin. Take care.